Yeah. No, that's a good point. That's a good point that the feasting was something he had been doing all along, and sort of something that he's probably used to, and something that he sort of would go unconscious during. Um, I wanted to say something like, he was suspicious of the princess, but in the joy of the feast, and she convinced him not to be worried, or something like that.
Yeah, you
But
you know, you get caught up. There's a lot of people there. Stories are told, and yeah,
yeah,
drinking, and it goes on into the night. So,
yep, yep. Um, and then he goes and he gets the horn, and once he has the horn, he is filled with thoughts of revenge. And he goes and he's about to take over the city, um, when he is invited to come and dine. And he accepts. And the princess had no trouble figuring out who he was. She sat at his side during the banquet, and once again she used her craft to extract from him what she wanted. He succumbed to her seductions, but then blew into his horn to command his army to retreat. So she convinces him. So he this time he's upset. He shows up angry, and he enters as sort of the conqueror, not not as an invitation. He's coming just of his own,
mhm.
on his own power. But she still manages to find out what his deal is, seduce him, and he's like, okay, I'll call the army off. So he makes the decision to call the army. So he gives away his power in that sense, in that moment.
Mhm.
Um, and then during the night, she exchanged the magical horn for an ordinary one. And when he refused to propose, he was condemned to death. So, like, the first time she sends him away and he's banned from the city. Um, Second time, it doesn't really say much of anything. But then the third time, he's sentenced to death. So this is like the more serious result of his rejection of the princess. It's like it's no longer like, um, well, go away. We don't want you around. It's like, no, we're gonna kill you this time. Like you can't keep doing this. You can't storm our city and threaten it, and then we make peace with you and refuse the princess. I mean, I guess you could do that, but it is kind of, well, I guess when the young man refused to propose, he was condemned to death by the king. So the king is, that's kind of, I guess this is just sort of a little crack in the fairy tale, but like, um, the king condemns him to death before the king finds out that the horn doesn't work. Oh, maybe the daughter told, maybe the princess tells the king or something. I don't know. I mean, I don't have to analyze, and I don't get that too deep in the weeds there. But it is interesting
Mm.
that he's condemned to death, blows the horn to save himself from being condemned to death, but then finds out that it doesn't work. So he definitely gets, he gets kind of one pulled over on him yet again.
Mm. Yeah,
Um,
that's how I took that part.
and then the princess lets him escape undetected. She had not given up hope and helps him to escape. So there's definitely like a trauma bond between these two.
Mm.
Like he can't stay away from her, but won't marry her, and she really wants him to marry her, and will pretty much is just convinced that he's going to if she just asks him enough times, takes care of him enough. Like there's definitely,
Yeah.
I don't, maybe not a trauma bond, maybe it's just sort of standard codependency, but there's definitely some kind of a like, what's the some kind of attachment thing going on here. The like
Mm.
he'll get close to her, but not too close, and she desperately needs him to want her.
Mm.
So I get that's like the avoidant attachment and anxious attachment, like pair bonding kind of a thing.
What about that being another example of her hubris?
Hmm. Um, yeah, I mean, she's definitely very certain that she's going to get what she wants, and she just has to trick him enough times and take
Yeah.
away is the powers and things.
And he's shown that he can threaten her whole city, and yet she's still thinking about it like on a personal level what she wants, you know.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. I'm taking it you're not a fan of the princess,
Well, I mean,
or at least that's
yeah,
one
but I'm not a
perspective.
fan of any of the people. I'm just kind of I think of it as like a good way. I sort of think at least now of this story as like a lesson about kind of respect and being careful
Hmm.
about what you do, how you do it, who you offend, and all that stuff. And I think of the princess, yeah, as a good example of like, yeah, kind of the entitled, uh, kind of privileged person, not having learned from experience, not knowing their limits, and kind of paying the price for that.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Hmm. I'm
The
thinking of how to say.
story is called The Scorned Princess. It's not the title seems to indicate she's the main character in a way. And I think of Fortunatus as like as opposed to his comrades, he doesn't settle down. He kind of roams around. He's kind of like at least a vagabond, but then he's always having feasts. To me, he's almost like a trickster type character who kind of yeah, well, Trickster, I think, causes chaos just for the joy of chaos, but he more like brings a kind of justice to. So he's always like feasting with people, gaining their respect and things. But then when she invites him in and then doesn't treat him like a guest, or her father invites him in, but they don't treat him like a guest, and they try to change his life. They try to possess him or whatever. There could be something about how he's like a creature of the outside society. He only has these feasts, which almost could be like a devil's kind of bordello kind of thing that he brings to the world or something.
Hmm.
But either way, like they invite him into the city, or they invite him into the castle and then try to get what they want, try to change him in some way. And he shows them he doesn't want it. But then they try to take his stuff, which to me is like that's kind of that there's nothing worse maybe of a guest than to like steal their valuable possessions to try to make them when they and to try to make them do what you want, but then and then also to condemn you to death. That's like treating a guest pretty badly.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
So I just thought,
Hmm.
yeah, it's kind of maybe the story is like a lesson of what happens when you're not careful and respectful, when you don't know about powerful forces in the world and you think you have hubris and you think you do. So that's I think a good yeah, and a monarch or a leader or someone with privilege as opposed to the other two comrades who are kind of they get rich enough and they get their piece of land or whatever and they're content with life as opposed to someone like that, someone who's presumably has everything. They have the control of the kingdom, but they just can't let it rest. And I'm sure you know, she's mystified as to why he doesn't want her. She is either extremely unself-aware or she's presumably attractive in some way and could have her pick of the princes of the land or whatever, but she has to have that one. So to me, it's, yeah, like you mentioned, covetous, that word appeared to me as well
Hmm.
about
Hmm.
in terms of her character trait.